creatures coming back from the dead to an unbelievable two-headed dog. Here are 11 of the weirdest animal experiments ever.
Welcome to Weird Wonders Wednesday.
Number 11. In 1991, nearly 2,500 baby jellyfish accompanied the crew of the Columbia Space Shuttle. Researchers were hoping to discern the effects gravity would have on humans born in outer space. Initially, it seemed the jellyfish adapted well to their new conditions. The population swelled to around 60,000, but upon returning to Earth, the space-borne jellies exhibited some pulsing abnormalities that were greater than anticipated. That essentially meant the creatures experienced vertigo because they couldn't adapt to the gravity. Researchers concluded that because humans have appendages that can sense gravity, not unlike jellyfish, they would likely experience similar problems. Number 10. In the early 1960s, Oklahoma researchers conducted a test with an elephant to determine the effects of LSD on the animals. The researchers found a desirable male subject named Tusco at a local zoo. A syringe bullet packed with 297 milligrams of LSD was fired into Tusco's hindquarters. That was 3,000 times the average dose for a human. Now, why did researchers want to inject an elephant with such a high dose of the potent hallucinogen? Well, they claimed it was to determine if LSD might induce a state of must in the creatures. That's an agitated state that bull elephants often experience during rutting season. Shortly after receiving the LSD shot, Tusco began moving erratically, then immediately keeled over and died. No meaningful lessons were learned in the debacle, or so it seems, but a few months later, the researchers stated the obvious in a scientific journal, that being, elephants are apparently highly sensitive to LSD. Number 9. Have you ever wondered what sort of music rats enjoy listening to? An experiment was undertaken at Albany Medical College in 2011 that proved rats actually prefer silence to music. But when given a choice of Beethoven or Miles Davis, they went with Beethoven. Researchers then administered cocaine to the rats to gauge the preference while in an altered state of consciousness. Under that circumstance, the test subjects preferred Miles Davis. The conclusion? Rats prefer jazz, but only when they're wasted. Number 8. Now, you've heard of a turtle dove, but how about a turtle duck? The combination is unlikely since the last ancestor died around 255 million years ago, so you couldn't breed them. Scientists came up with the solution to mix the creature's embryos and essentially hope for something that resembled a turtle-duck hybrid. Two types of experiments were undertaken. Cells were taken from duck embryos and implanted into turtle embryos. In the second experiment, that order was reversed. Initially, results appeared promising. Turtles displayed evidence of duck DNA in their eyes, while evidence of the turtle cells were noticed in the ducks' hearts. But when the hatchlings emerged, none of them looked like true hybrids. Turtles looked like turtles, while ducks looked like ducks. The experiment was not a total loss, however, as minute traces of duck DNA was found in a few turtles, and the creatures did survive. Still, in all this, we never really found out why scientists deemed this hybrid to be so necessary. Number 7. Franken-creatures. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein was first published in 1818, but its real-life influences can be found long before that. Luigi Galvani, an Italian physicist, is recognized as the pioneer in bioelectromagnetics and is credited for discovering bioelectricity. In 1780, he discovered animal electricity when he found that electrical sparks could make the muscles of dead frog legs twitch. The phenomenon was termed galvanism, and those who followed with similar experiments were often called galvanists. Many of those subsequent experiments investigated the reanimation of human corpses. Number 6. A 19th century German scientist named Carl August Weinhold viewed the human brain as a type of battery connected by wires. To prove his hypothesis, he performed experiments on kittens in 1817, intended to reanimate them after death. After decapitating the creature, the scientist would extract the spinal cord and replace that organ with zinc and silver pile batteries, which could generate an electrical charge. According to Weinhold, the kittens' hearts began to beat and they would twitch and hop about for several minutes before expiring. Number 5. Could dead organisms be revived if no major organ damage was experienced? A University of California researcher thought so. In the 1930s, Robert Cornish asphyxiated 4 fox terriers, all of whom he named Lazarus, after the biblical character that was raised from the dead. The animals were placed in a strange seesaw type of machine. Its up and down motion kept the animals' blood circulating, while Cornish administered anticoagulants and adrenaline. The first 2 subjects could not be revived, but the last 2 fox terriers did survive, although that is likely a relative term. The dogs were blind and severely brain damaged, but lived at the researcher's home until they were clinically put to death. Cornish later planned to use this procedure on a San Quentin death row inmate. California state officials denied that petition, however, determining that if the convict was reanimated after death, he might have to be released due to the double jeopardy clause. Number 4. Monkey head transplant. In 1970, scientists at the School of Medicine at Case Western Reserve University transplanted the head of a monkey onto the decapitated body of another specimen. The experiment was considered a partial success. The animal could see, hear, smell, and taste, and is said to have attempted to bite at the staff. But the creature couldn't move its body since the spinal cord had to be severed, and there was no known way to reattach it to the brain. The creature lived for around 36 hours before dying. Robert J. White, the neurosurgeon who led the procedure, planned to perform it on humans in the 1990s, but never received the opportunity. Number 3. We just told you about the monkey head transplant performed in 1970, but more recently, Dr. Sergio Canavero, an Italian surgeon, claimed to have conducted the successful transplant of a monkey's head with a research team in China, with the goal of eventually performing the procedure on humans. The blood supply between the monkey's head and its new body were connected, but not the spinal cord. That was left unconnected in order to prevent paralysis, but it's unknown if the animal experienced pain after the procedure, although it was said to have suffered no brain damage. For ethical reasons, the monkey was kept alive for 20 hours after the operation. The graphic photo of the creature does appear to be a simian creature with a row of large stitches across its neck that are reminiscent of the Frankenstein monster. However, we have not been able to authenticate this picture. Number 2. Have you ever heard of the autojector? Well, it's considered one of the world's first heart and lung machines. It was created by a Russian scientist named Sergei Brakhanenko, who had even more incredible uses in store for it. The machine was also intended to keep a head alive while the body underwent surgery. The scientist showed the successful results of this procedure in a film called Experiments in the Revival of Organisms, made in 1940. In that film, what appears to be the decapitated head of a dog is shown connected to a series of tubes and is subjected to various stimulations. When a light is shined in its eyes, the canine head reacted. When a hammer is banged on a nearby table, the head is seen to flinch. The head is seen being fed a piece of cheese, which passes through the esophageal tube. To be fair, the material presented in the film has provoked a lot of controversy since its release, and the events depicted have never been officially authenticated. Number 1. Now, this is not a scene from a horror movie, because this horror occurred in real life. In 1959, Life magazine sent photographer Howard Sashurik to Russia to record this bizarre surgical procedure on film. His photos detailed the procedure used by a Soviet scientist named Vladimir Demikov, who was considered an organ transplant pioneer. The pictures document various stages of the procedure, including the shocking result. This surgery involved a larger dog, who was a strain named Brodyaga, or Trump, and a smaller dog named Shavka. Without going into all the gory details, Shavka's head and forepaws were successfully grafted to the body of the host dog, which resulted in the two-headed animal. Both animals did initially survive the procedure. They could see and move independently, but they died 4 days later. Demikov attempted this experiment more than 24 times with different subjects with varying degrees of success.